So for example 4, when given a line on a graph, you should be able to write your equation in all three forms that you are given. So first thing we need to do is find slope. So from the most left point to the most right point, how do we find slope? So we're going to go down, which is -4, and we're going to go to the right, +5. So our slope would be -4/5. And then we need to pick a point on the graph, and I'm going to pick the most left point, which is this one here, and that would be 0, 4. And then lastly, you would also need to know what the y-intercept is. So the y-intercept in this case is 4, because the point on the y-axis where the line meets the line is 4. Alright, so now for point slope form, we need to have a point and a slope. So your point would be x1, y1. Your slope is -4/5. And if we were to plug it into the formula here, we need to have y minus y1. So y1 is 4. The slope was -4/5. Okay, and then we have the x minus x1. Our x1 is 0. All right, so now, recently in the last notes, we talked about if you had a -0, you normally don't see 0 as minus. So you could have a +0 here or a -0. Either way, it would be correct. Okay, so if I compare this answer to my answers, it would have to be B. All right, then if we look at slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, all we need is m and b. So if I look, I've got y equals -4/5 x plus 4. So I compare that answer, and it looks like we've got D. Now, from going from slope-intercept to standard form, you will have to clear the fraction. So what I would do is I would take that 5 and I would multiply it to all of these terms. So I would have 5y. These 5's would cancel, and I would have -4x. And then I would multiply the 5 and the 4 and get 20. The last thing I would do is I would bring that 4 over to the other side by adding it. And I would get a +4x plus that +5y equals 20. And so if I compare that, it would have to be D. 4x, 5y, and +20. Okay. For example 4, I would need to find my slope of my line. So in this case, the far left point to the most right point, I'm going to have to rise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and run 2. So that gives me my slope to be 5/2. And my B would be where it crosses the line, which would be at -1. The most left point on my line would have to be the 0, -1 right here. And so I will go ahead and jot that down as well as label it x1, y1. Okay, for number 4, to put it into point slope form, we have to use that equation. So I would have y minus y1. Okay, so y1 is -1. And we also discussed in day 7 notes that if you have a double negative, it should turn to a positive. Then our slope is 5/2. And then we have x minus x1. So x minus 0. Again, we can leave it -0, or you can change it to a +0. Either way is acceptable. Okay, so now going down here and checking, it looks like we're at one of these, but I have to have a +1, so it has to be letter C. Okay, for slope-intercept form, we're going to have y equals mx plus b. M, in this case, was that 5/2. Plus b was going to be a -1, so that's going to be just a -1 there. And if I compare that to A, B, C, D, it has to be C. And then in order to get number 6, you will have to clear your fraction on letter C here. So we're going to multiply everything by 2. So I would get 2y. These 2's would cancel, leaving you 5x. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. In order to put it in standard form, your x needs to be over here with your y. So I will subtract it to both sides, getting negative 5x plus a positive 2y equaling negative 2. So that would have to be letter C.